Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down one of the most, well, counterintuitive and dangerous laws of power. This is a law that has cost people not just their jobs, but their freedom, and sometimes even their lives.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. The first law of power isn't about showing off how talented you are. Nope, it's about managing the ego of those above you. Look, everyone has insecurities, and a subordinate's brilliance, that can feel like a silent judgment on their own abilities. When you display your gifts, you naturally stir up resentment and envy. And with your superiors, well, that can be fatal. And this is the million-dollar question, right? It's such a common mistake to believe that by showing off your talents, you're winning your master's affection. But history gives us a pretty stark warning through the stories of two brilliant men who faced this exact problem.
So let's get right to the heart of this law. It's really a fundamental truth about human nature and, the unspoken rules of any hierarchy. So the crucial point is this. Your goal is to make your superiors feel secure, not threatened. Power is often built on this really fragile foundation of ego and status. They might pretend to appreciate your brilliance, but believe me, at the first opportunity, they will replace you with someone less intelligent, less attractive, and a whole lot less threatening. To really get our heads around this, we're going to look at two case studies from the source material. We've got one guy whose brilliance led directly to his ruin, and another who understood this law perfectly and used it to achieve greatness.
Okay, our first story is a masterclass in what not to do. It's the ultimate cautionary tale of a man who threw the world's greatest party and paid for it with his freedom. So you really have to understand the master in this story. King Louis XIV was a man whose famous quote was, "L'état c'est moi," I am the state. He had to be the sun that everyone else revolved around. His ego was the size of his kingdom, and his insecurity was just as huge. Any perceived rival was a threat not just to his power, but to his very identity. Fouquet's intention was, pure. When the prime minister died, Fouquet totally expected to get the position, but the king just abolished it. So, to get back in the king's good graces and prove his value, Fouquet planned this incredible event at his new, magnificent chateau. He really thought it would make him indispensable. Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is just how quickly his fate turned. I mean, the party was a masterpiece. The greatest minds of Europe were there. There was music commissioned just for the king, a play written by Molière. But who was everyone talking about? Fouquet. The host had completely outshone the guest of honor. So instead of pleasing his master, Fouquet's spectacular display of wealth and taste just made the king feel insecure and upstaged. The sheer lavishness of it all suggested that the finance minister was richer and had better taste than the king himself. For someone like Louis, this wasn't just an insult, it was a public challenge to his supremacy. The theft charges, they were just an excuse. His real crime was wounding the king's vanity. And this was the price of his mistake. Fouquet spent the last 20 years of his life in solitary confinement, in a remote prison high up in the Pyrenees Mountains, all because he threw a party that was just a little too good. Okay, now let's flip the script and look at someone who understood this law perfectly and used it to his advantage. This is the story of how you turn a discovery into a promotion. Galileo was a genius, no doubt about it. But he knew that his patrons cared way less about scientific truth and way more about their own name and glory. He dedicated inventions to various patrons before and gotten gifts, but what he really needed was a steady salary to secure his future. And this just brilliantly illustrates his strategy, doesn't it? He didn't just name the moons after them. He created a cosmic tribute. He elevated the Medici family to the level of gods, making their family dynamic into a celestial event. He made them outshine everyone else, and by doing that, he secured his own position for life.
So this isn't just about kings and astronomers. The same dynamics of ego and insecurity play out in every office, every organization, today. So what's the takeaway for us?
These are practical strategies, really. If your ideas are more creative than your master's, just say they came from them. Make it super clear that your advice is just an echo of their advice. Make a few harmless mistakes so you can ask for their help. It's not about being a suck-up. It's about strategic intelligence. It is not a weakness to disguise your strengths if, in the end, they lead to power.
But like any rule of power, there are always exceptions. And this is where the law gets even more interesting and where you need to be extremely careful. Yes, the sources are very clear that there is one critical moment when you can and absolutely should break this rule, but your timing has to be perfect. In this one specific situation, you must not be merciful. You have to gauge their strength. If they're weak and truly ready to fall, let nature take its course. You can even discreetly hasten their downfall by outdoing them, outcharming them, and outsmarting them at key moments. Power eventually fades, and if you play it right, you'll outlive them and one day outshine them.
Ultimately, this law is all about control. By letting others shine, you control their insecurity instead of becoming a victim of it. The real power is in understanding the dynamics around you, knowing when to stay in the shadows and praise the sun, and then recognizing that precise moment when it's your time to take its place.